Welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. We've got a full show, a little bit different stuff as we are in sort of that off week before the Super Bowl. We are going to hit up on the injury report. We got some news today from Andy Reid during his press conference. We're going to give the defense a little bit of love, talking about how historic they are, and specifically Steve Spagnuolo. Talk a little Travis Kelce, and let's expand on a little playoff Travis Kelce, and head into our old little segment, the AFC West expansion, and talk about the poor, pitiful rest of the AFC West. My name is Quentin Morris. We got Thiz running the show in the background. And now a guy who was either a loser or a jackass, the old man himself, JP. How are
What's
we
up,
doing
buddy?
today? I
I'm better,
see
man.
your eyes working, so
Yeah,
that's good. Your
yeah, that
back
shit wore off.
is feeling better because you're
Yeah,
actually here. So
yeah.
your whole week is just on a lift here.
It's on a trajectory, brother. I mean, it's on a good trajectory. So that's all that matters.
Well, I'm happy you're back and that your body, well, at least at the moment, isn't falling apart.
Correct.
It's the little
Well, at
things
least
in
it's
life.
not stiffed up and not able to move. That's always a plus when you can move. What a what a time to be a Chiefs fan,
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, just
man.
it's crazy. I still can't, you know, I don't think it'll hit me again until the game is actually starting to play because of the off week. It's like you say, oh, the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and it's just like it doesn't. I don't think it's hit me emotionally yet.
Yeah,
But man, on that Super Bowl Sunday, or when we start seeing these press conferences out in Las Vegas, and then we start to see a lot of the pregame stuff, that's when it's going to hit me again, and it's
yeah,
just going to be awesome. It
yeah.
is.
It's gonna be lit. There's
I
no doubt
mean,
about it.
I don't think anybody, being in Kansas City, I think that because we had the Royals go to the World Series in 14 and 15, and having them lose in 14, and that will forever be the biggest playoff slash emotionally hurting sports event that have happened in my lifetime, right? The
Yeah,
Royals losing in 14 because you didn't know what was going to happen next. When, even if the Chiefs lost in their first Super Bowl, the 49ers Super Bowl the first time around, I think that Chiefs fans would have felt good about it afterwards because you realize, oh, we have Patrick Mahomes, like we'll be fine, right? There's a lot to build off here.
yeah,
As the difference for when the Royals were in it in 14, you didn't know what was going to happen because the team was below 500 at the All-Star break in
yeah,
2014. And then
yeah,
to have them lose, it was such an emotional event for that to happen. And I think because of that sort of setup where they lose in 14, win in 15, now when you have these extended playoff runs with the Chiefs, you've already been through all of the emotions. So you can sort of just like, heading up to the big game, you really know what that's going to feel like. And so not only is there experience for the players that are here for this game, but it's also the experience for the fans where you can sort of like take a breath and really just enjoy it instead of having to sit here and like, you're all juiced up about it for the next 2 weeks.
yeah. And it's kind of funny because I waited a long time for this, and every time we go, it's like we have never been before for me. I mean, look, I sat in Buffalo in 1993 and watched Joe Montana get knocked out, and I was on the field when it happened. And it was an emotional game that I don't think I'll ever forget. So every time we go now, it's not expected. It's like people, newer fans, oh, well, this is normal and this is just the Chiefs. No, it's not. I mean, if you had been around from 1990 on, or even prior to that, you would know this is not just the Chiefs. This has been an emotional roller coaster for everybody involved, including the ownership. I mean, they fought for a long time. Lamar and I know he was smiling down on the first one. Going to the second one, was an amazing thing for him, I'm sure. And just this run, God, he would have loved to see this. That man bleed. He bled red. It is what it is. He loved football. He loved everything about it. He was the nicest guy on the planet, and I wish he could see this. I really do. I thought about this the other day, and it's it's just rough. Him and Derek Thomas both. Derek was such a good friend of mine and such a good dude. I hope he sees all of this, and I hope he's really, you know, shining down on this, especially against the Raiders. He hated the Raiders. I don't think there was a player alive that hated the Raiders more than him.
Isn't it awesome that we get a chance to win a Super Bowl in their stadium?
Yeah, man. I mean,
I
I
think
don't
that just
think
adds. I think
it
that just adds
does.
more on it.
It
And
just
don't
adds that
forget,
extra
guys.
jab in the fucking neck.
Don't forget, guys. There's a Chiefs flag buried at the 50-yard line underneath that stadium.
Hey, he's got another one, and he's here. So I don't know where he plans on putting it, but he's planning on doing something. I do know that. So
Yeah, never
hopefully it's
never
going to be
forget
cool.
never forget that, Chiefs Kingdom. We've got a
Yeah.
flag buried under the Raiders stadium.
Oh, we put a curse on those motherfuckers. What you said about the Royals, I agree. The one that I think got was emotional for people to lose, and it still sticks in Mahomes' head the most is 2020 because, of course, you don't want to lose to Tom Brady, and that was a rough. I don't think there was much more that I wanted was them to beat Tom Brady because I'm so sick of hearing the talk about oh Brady's better he beat you twice he's better. It's just so fucking tiring. The guy's been out of football now. What? This is his second year out.
Yeah,
Feels like yeah. And no matter whenever Mahomes is brought up to being the goat because he is, he's a more athletic player. He's a better football player all around than Tom Brady was. He just doesn't have the longevity yet.
yeah,
And it's just frustrating. And I know it sticks in his craw. And every time somebody fucks with him, it just gives him more motivation. And I love it.
yeah. And I think the fact that he has to at least get to 7 means that he's always going to be motivated to get that next one, to get the
Absolutely. And
next
that's his biggest motivation is to beat that record.
because that's really the only thing that's in his way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because he has already accomplished everything. He retires today, he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot, no
First
question.
ballot. Yeah.
So now it's just about getting to the longevity. He's going to put up the stats. All it's coming down to now for Patrick Mahomes is going to be the rings.
Yeah.
And that's what's motivating him. And as soon as he wins, this game in 10 days, 9 days, as soon as he puts that up, you know, in about a week, he's going to be thinking about, going and trying to put up another one. And that's the quarterback that we have. But let's transition into, definitely not an exciting segment, but we have to do it. We got some news today on the injury report. Uh, Andy Reid spoke to the media today. This is not huge news, I would say, but he confirmed it today. Charles Omenihu will not play in the Super Bowl. I know he had a torn ACL, and I know that everybody knew that he wasn't going to play, but it's official, right? And it's important to when we have, signed on a piece of paper that he's not going to play. He's not going to play. The other couple of interesting injuries to come out. Joe Tooney still has not practiced, but Andy Reid specifically said that he is in no way ruling out Tooney for the Super Bowl. So that's interesting just because, anytime you can get an all pro level guard back and playing, I
Yeah.
know that, we had great play from Allegretti in the playoff game against the Ravens, but, anytime you can get Joe Thuney back, it will be fantastic. So he did not practice, but he has not been ruled out like Charles Omenihu has. Good to see on other fronts. We did see Chris Jones and Isaiah Pacheco practice today. They did not practice on Wednesday. And then the only other guy that was limited in practice today was Sky Moore, who hasn't been, a full participant in practice since he got off the IR. And I don't know how a lot of Chiefs fans feel about this, but he's coming back in practice. So
I think he's going to be a healthy scratch. Depending on how the other players look, and unless they decide to swap him out for McColl, and McColl's a healthy scratch.
maybe,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Whoever ends up playing that role, they're going to have a tiny role in the offense. I think you found your guys. Your three. We've been talking about how these are the three. This is the three-headed monster of the Chiefs offense this year, and Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, and Rushy Rice. So this is what you're going to go forward with, and then sprinkle in a combination of whatever's left. So I'm not all that worried about it. It doesn't really impact me, but it is interesting that you're seeing Sky Moore start to make that comeback. And that's a good point that you bring up as you're not taking snaps away from the three-headed monster who you're going to take him away from. And
Exactly.
McCole Hardman seems to be the guy, on the outside looking in.
Yeah. I think that's the one that they're probably going to scratch. I do believe McCole will be scratched for this game. I don't and let it, look. I mean, you've got Tony that can practice if they want to, if they want him to, I guess, and play. I don't know how that's going to work out yet, but look, man. I mean, when it all comes down to it, what we have going right now is just fine. Um, we didn't need McCole in the rest of that game. We didn't need him in the Ravens game, and we did just fine. So if they decided not to play Sky Moore or McCole and just have him active, or one of the other active, that's fine
Yeah.
with me. Who cares? You know, it
Or
doesn't
all they
matter.
do is like, all they are is returning punts or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean, look, in my opinion, you put Richie James on the offense and maybe return a couple, and then put McCole back there to return punts because I still don't trust Sky Moore too much on returning punts. Yeah, he's learned how to do it a little bit, but this is too big of a game to put him out there and take a chance, in my opinion. So,
All right, let's move on to our next segment. I want to talk about the historic defense that
yeah,
Kansas City
man,
has been putting out on the field. It's
the
it,
true number one defense.
it
Let's just
yeah,
say, it.
man, the things that Kansas City has done. There is a wonderful stat that I saw come out. There have been 5 teams in the Super Bowl era, including the playoffs, which have allowed under 28 points in 19 or more games. Okay? It is the 2000 Ravens,
Yep,
which a lot of people consider to be the best defense of the modern football era.
yeah,
The '02 Bucks, the 2005 Steelers, and the 2010 Packers all allowed under 28 points in 19 games,
yep,
right? The
yep,
Chiefs of 2023 have allowed under 28 points in 20 games.
yep,
All those other teams listed, the 2000 Ravens, the '02 Bucks, the '05 Steelers, and the 2010 Packers all won the Super Bowl.
yep,
And so here you have Kansas City, who played one more game and has a chance to win the Super Bowl.
yep,
I think that really cements where Kansas City's defense has been this year, because it really shows that it's one thing to be great in one game. It's one thing to be great during a month or 6 weeks, or, cherry picking that, oh, look, they were really good here, but, they gave up a 35-point game
yep,
against this really good offense at this, in week 6. Kansas City's defense has been consistent throughout the entire year. They gave up 27 points one time. That was
yep,
against the Packers, right?
yep,
Against Jordan Love, when their offense started exploded onto the scene. So this offense has not, or this defense has not only been good in, cherry picking stuff, right? This defense has been good all year on all 3 levels, from being one of the top teams in sacks and pressure rate, having one of the best linebacking cores, not just duos, I mean core,
yeah.
right?
The
From
entire group.
start for all 5 of them.
Yep,
And you've got the best cornerback duo, and you've got 2 really good safeties back there. Everybody on this team has been extremely successful at what they're doing, and it proves through basically all the statistics that you look up. It is fantastic, and I think that we just need to take a step back and remind ourselves about how good this defense is, because it truly has been great.
yep. I agree. We had, I remember a year in the '90s that we had a really good defense, but it didn't compare. I don't think it compared to this one. They were phenomenal. You know, with Derek Thomas and Neil Smith together, they were always very good, especially as far as pressure and sacks and things of that nature. But they struggled in other areas, whether it be secondary or linebackers. Safeties. They did struggle in those areas to some degree. This team is defense is so complete. I mean, it's a historic defense, no matter how you look at it. I the this sucks, but what bothers me the most is that a lot of these guys that are contributing to this may not be here next year.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that are key components to this won't be here next year. The Willie Gays, you know, um,
I mean, there are
Chris
just
Jones,
Chris Jones, Willie Gay, Drew Tranquil, L'Jarius Sneed. Just off the top of my head, all 4 of those guys' contracts
they're free
end.
agents. Yeah, they're free
Um,
agents.
Now,
So
I don't think all of them walk,
I don't either.
but you're going to have to pay, especially a guy like Sneed. Sneed didn't make $1 million this year.
No.
He made $980,000. right?
Yeah.
This is a guy that hasn't made very much money from an NFL standard. And if he hits free agency, he's going to get the bag, right? Which he deserves to. This is a guy, when you're playing as well as he has, you were a later round pick, so you haven't had a lot of guaranteed money up front. When you have that opportunity to hit free agency, that's what you do. I don't want to hear the conversations about a L'Jarius Sneed or Willie Gay taking that hometown discount, because a lot of these guys haven't made significant money yet. And when you're
Correct.
playing your best ball right now and have a chance to go back to back Super Bowls for both of these guys,
Yeah.
that allows you to make big money on free agent markets. And, these are the kind of players that deserve it.
And not
So,
only that, they're not the guys that are getting all the endorsements right now.
right,
You know,
right.
neither one of
Because
those guys are getting huge
they're
endorsements. So
on a national level, people don't know who Willie Gay is.
yeah,
People don't know who Drew Tranquil is, right? These are guys that look like good pieces, but if you sign them, right, and you're Mister, I don't know, Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, you don't know who some of these guys
correct.
are. You
Not
just
unless you're very, you're extremely in depth in football. You don't know who they
yeah,
are.
but like I couldn't tell you who the third linebacker is on the Buccaneers.
No, me neither. Me neither. Nor would I want to know. I don't really care. I mean, it's like we're not very, the Bucks are the Bucks, and we don't really care what they do. But and I get it from a different, the fans are looking at the Chiefs right now, and they probably do know who these players are more than we would anybody else, just given the fact that we are the Chiefs. We've been to the Super Bowl, what, 4 times in 5 years. I mean, that's historic in its own right. But I see what you're saying, and it's going to be hard. These guys, I know they don't want to leave. Most of them want to stay here. They want to. There's always that comfortable spot that you're in, and when you've been with a team for a certain amount of time, it's difficult to walk away from them. But then again, when it comes down to making, you know, 750 a year, 810, then 985, but you see other guys in the league that are corners that are making, he can look at anybody and go, well, shit, he just made 16 million this year. Look what Ward's getting, and he's nowhere near as good as I am. My thought is they're not going to let him go. I feel like they will franchise tag him if they have to.
And even that franchise tag is
It's 18 million.
it's actually it's 18.8 million. So
Yeah,
I mean
almost
that's an
19. Yeah,
expensive franchise tag.
it's an expensive. It's a very high value position though, and he's right now, in my opinion, the best in the league. So you either sign him to a long term deal, and then what I mean by long term is 2 to 3 years, because he's 28 years old now. So you want to sign him to where he's right at that edge, and you backload most of it. He still gets a good chunk of money. Maybe you give him a signing bonus, and then move forward because you still got that same guy. I think that's their best route, in my opinion, because then you're going to give up a signing bonus that you can use as a bonus structure right off the bat, and then everything else that he does, he gets a certain amount of money, whether it be 3 million next year or 5 million, and then the following year he gets 12 million, and then the third year, if he's declined at all, or you can restructure him then again. It's really up to you. But I think that's their best option because that's how you save cap money and keep your good players. That's all you can really do.
Yeah.
And I feel like they should do the same thing with Chris Jones, to be honest with you. I mean, look, man, this team is not going to be the same without him. It's just not. Everybody knows that. He's a beast. We can sign him to a 3-year deal and backload the deal. Give him a bonus structure deal up front. Whatever he gets, he gets. It's not going to hit the cap, so why not give it to him? And then the end of 3 years, you can either restructure him again, or if he's ready to retire, whatever it is he's ready to do, worry about it then. Because you always got Mahomes on a bonus structure contract, so you can always move his money around. You can't do that with every player. I think it's a good idea for them to think about that. I think you don't want to break up the band if the band's making a shit ton of money. If they're selling out stadiums, don't break up the band to that degree. I understand get rid of guys like Mike Dana and people like that. Fine, go. It is what it is. But you got to really think about your key players. We talked about this 2.5 years ago when I talked about the wide receiver situation, and it kind of bit us in the ass this year because I knew it was coming. Yeah, we got to a Super Bowl, but we also had the number one defense in the NFL. That helped a whole lot because we weren't putting up 36 points a game like we had the first 4 years in the league with Mahomes as a starter. That is. So it's a combination of both, and we got to think about that moving into next season.
It is a. It has been fantastic this year. What they've been able to do. This has been a 3 years in the making, right?
Yeah,
This has been a Brett Veach combination. This has been a Steve Spagnuolo getting the kind of players, getting the versatile players, using these guys all over the field. We've got two cornerbacks in L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie who are able to rotate and play safety.
yeah,
Um, both of those guys are able to do it. Sneed and McDuffie are both able to play over on slot. They've been able to. Both of them can blitz.
yep.
This has been a historic defense. And I know that you want to talk about Steve Spagnuolo, but let me
Yes,
sort
I
of
do.
introduce this next segment about Steve Spagnuolo. Since when in 2018, when the last year for Bob Sutton, the Chiefs defense was giving up more than 26 points per game, right, on
Exactly.
average.
Yeah,
Since Steve Spagnuolo got here, that has dropped to just a hair over 21.
yep,
So you're basically talking down almost a full touchdown. From
yeah.
from 1 year to the next, you're basically losing a full touchdown. That
Correct.
is huge. The difference that 1 year, one coordinator could make, and he has been fantastic. But I
I
know you
agree.
wanted to give some more, so take it away.
Here's the thing. What I put a question, or somebody put a question out on Twitter, and I answered it very quickly. Is Steve Spagnuolo the best defensive coordinator in modern history? He absolutely is. People can complain about the defensive 19 or the defensive 20, but think about this. I don't know of another defensive coordinator that's been to 5 Super Bowls. Do you? Because I don't know of one. Other than the guy from the Patriots, what's his name? Patricia. Did he go to 5?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know how long he was
Here's
there.
what I know. Here's what I can tell you though. Uh, all of the Super Bowls that he's been to, he was in charge of the defense.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
like it's not like like Matt Patricia,
There
even
wasn't
if
a
he's been to five.
defensive head coach, and then he was
Right,
there.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he played a huge part in those Giants, and
Yeah.
he was a huge part of stopping the Patriots in that. He's been a
Yes.
huge part. He's basically the head coach of the defense here, right? Andy Reid just lets him do his thing because that's how much confidence he has with him. So, oh, that's right. Yeah, Romeo Crennel was the head coach or was the defensive coordinator out in New England. So Matt Patricia didn't
That's right.
participate in all those.
I don't think there's a
Um,
defensive coordinator
he
in the
has the
modern
most
history
Super
that
Bowl rings
has.
as a coordinator. I can tell you
Correct.
that, and he's the
Correct.
only coordinator to win multiple rings with two different teams.
2 different teams.
Only one
Correct.
in Super
History.
Bowl history.
Correct. He,
So
in my
he
opinion, he is the best defensive coordinator in modern history. I don't think you
what
can
he
find
is
another
able
guy
to
that's as
do,
good as him.
and I know this is going to get a little football nerdy. So, but what he's able to do in disguising what the Chiefs are doing before, because when you're watching like a Tony Romo right on the broadcast, and he's able to draw out on he's like, look, the Chiefs are showing this too high coverage, and then all of a sudden you see a corner roll out and a safety
Mhm.
come down. That confuses quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
It confuses quarterbacks, and in the modern NFL, you have to attack the quarterback, especially guys like, your Joe Burrows or Josh Allen, right? The top tier quarterbacks, the way to beat them is to confuse them, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's
Correct.
how guys make mistakes.
And this is
And
something that he started. That's what I think people don't realize is this is something he started years ago.
yeah,
This wasn't something that he just started when he came to Kansas City. He knew what was coming to the NFL. He knew that this league was going to go to younger quarterbacks, more of an air attack game, and he decided to take it over. And when he did, he confused everybody. And every team he's gone up against in the Super Bowl or prior, getting to the Super Bowl, he has destroyed their team.
and think
That's
about just here this year, right? About the different kinds of defenses we've seen. Okay? When we're facing Lamar Jackson, the Chiefs did a great job of being able to stay in the rush lanes and contain Lamar Jackson and force them to throw the ball. Right?
correct.
That's what the Chiefs did.
Yep.
And then you think about some of the other teams that Kansas City has faced where it's like they're blitzing. They're going after the quarterback. That's two totally different skill sets for the same players. That's two
Correct.
totally different game plans with the same players. And
And
so
think
that
about
goes
that.
on the personnel that you have, but more importantly, that goes on the coach to be able to speak to these guys and say, hey, this week, we've got a week to prepare. I need you to do this. This is your job. This is how we're
Yep.
playing this defense for this 1 week. And then
And
to
look at the
go
age
next
of
week,
these guys that he's doing it with.
think
That's something that's
how about
amazing.
this? This is a great example from the Miami game to the Bills game, right? Two totally different defenses with the exact
Right.
same players. I mean, it is phenomenal what he's able to do to explain to these guys, "Hey, this is the defense we're playing. We're playing this team. This is the game plan." Then the next week to do basically the exact opposite. "Hey, we're going to contain. We're going to keep the big plays from happening. We're going to try and contain Josh Allen, and we're going to try and get them to run the ball because we feel like that's our best way to win." I mean, it has been fantastic, and a lot of it is just because of Spags and who that defensive coordinator is. It is fantastic, and I
It
do think
is.
that he is extremely underrated. And here's my last thought on this. What is great about the system or the scenario that Kansas City is in is Steve Spagnuolo is not up for any of these head coaching jobs. So
Well, yeah.
what's great about it is that you're not going to lose Spags to another team. So you can
No.
continue to build on this defense and you're keeping the same system here and you're not worried about him moving on. So you can continue to just say Andy Reid is going to focus on just the offense, Spags is going to focus on just the defense, and here we go, baby. We're going back to another Super Bowl because you have a great setup here in Kansas City. It's
Wait,
fantastic.
and here's the other thing. I think people don't realize he's done this with very young players. This start, if you think about the average age of our players last year, we had 7 rookies on defense last year that were active.
We had
7
the the third
in a
most
Super Bowl game.
starts by rookie snaps
Yeah,
by
yeah,
rookies in the
third most
NFL.
snaps. Correct.
The
But
other were the guys picking number 1 and number 2 overall in the draft.
well, here's the other thing. We had the most active rookies in any Super Bowl ever.
Ever, yeah.
So to be able to take a bunch of rookies, 21, 22, 23-year-old guys and turn them into an 11th overall defense that quickly is unbelievable. Unbelievable that he's able to do that. Not only that, the depth that we have, that he was played a big part in that draft. The depth that he brought in is insane because when we have a guy go down, we have somebody else that's able to come in and do the exact same thing for the most part. I don't think people realize how good he is, not only at his job with the players, but also bringing in personnel because Joe Cullen was a huge help on the defensive line. We know that. To be a great leader, you have to be able to bring people in that are just as good as you, if not better, at certain things. And that's what he did. He knew he wasn't the strongest at the defensive line, so he brought in somebody that was. And that guy has made the defensive line better.
Mm-hmm.
Spags just makes the entire group better, and they love him. And I think, to be honest with you, I know people don't want to hear, you don't want to hear about, well, the players want to stick around for, the experience. I know for a fact that a lot of these guys will stick around because of Spags. They absolutely have nothing but mad respect for him. And it's going to be difficult for them to leave and go to another defensive coordinator that may use them the wrong way or not use them enough, and then they falter. And that's going to be hard on their psyche, and I know that's in their minds. And if it's not in their minds, it's been planted in their minds. Believe me. So it's amazing what he has been able to do with such a young football team, a young group, a core group of guys, skill position players. Everybody has just been on top of it. We couldn't ask for more. We just couldn't. I mean, I want to touch on what you said about him not being up for a head coaching job. There's a reason why. Because he made it very clear, extremely crystal clear, that he was not interested in being a head coach. He made that clear in 2018, 2019, 2020. He does not want to be a head coach. He enjoys what he's doing. He doesn't want the stress and the pressure of it. He's happy with where he's at. He's not brought up in the discussions because he doesn't want to do it. It's not because they don't want him. They know they're not going to get him because he's made it very clear he doesn't care. He has enough money. He makes enough money. He loves what he does. It's simply he just doesn't want to do it. So, which I'm glad he doesn't, because that means we have him until retirement. That's
Exactly.
what that means. So I'm okay with that. But you're right. What he has been able to do with these young guys and to run different schemes between different playoff caliber teams and to be able to shut them down the way he has, man, I don't know, dude. He's raised the level of play to a level that I don't think I'd ever see. And it's pretty amazing that we have not only the number one defense in the league, which we do have the true number one defense. We made that very fucking clear against the Ravens because they were supposed to be number one. We also have Patrick Mahomes, which is the number one quarterback in football. We have the best head coach in football that is offensive minded. If we can keep that same package going, which it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. Andy made it very clear. Spags made it very clear. We know Mahomes ain't going anywhere. We're going to be in good shape for the next 10 years. I think Mahomes retires at Chief. I think Andy retires when he's 70, like he said he wanted to do, like I've been told he said he wanted to do. And I don't think Spags is he's nowhere near retirement. So we're just in a great position. But in my opinion, yes, he is the best defensive coordinator in modern history. I don't think there's a better one than him. And if anybody can think of one, whether you're not, I know a lot of haters of the Chiefs would say somebody else, but you got to bring stats and prove that to me because
Yeah.
unless you can find a defensive coordinator that brought a bunch of first and second year guys to the number one spot in the NFL within a 2-year period, number 11th and number one, and went to 5 Super Bowls, you don't have an argument. It's that simple.
Consistency is the key here for me.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great conversation, and whoever you end, I mean, he has to be. There's a serious conversation about it. Let's move on to our next topic. I want to talk about playoff Travis Kelsey. We talked about playoff Mahomes last or earlier in the week. There's a lovely graphic that our producer Thiz made. This is fantastic. So Travis Kelsey has been compared to Gronk a lot, and what he's able to do. So we've got Travis Kelsey's played 21 games, 156 yards, and has a little over 1,800 yards or 156 catches with a little over 1,800 yards and 19 touchdowns in his career. Gronk has a little bit, one more game, 98 catches, 15 touchdowns, and 1,300 yards. The conversation really needs to be about Travis Kelsey being the best tight end of all time, especially when you're talking about it in the playoffs. Because I know we talk about how Travis Kelsey has broken Jerry Rice's record for receptions in the playoffs. But I think that conversation has sort of been thrown aside about how he compares to the tight ends in the
Correct.
playoffs.
Correct.
Um, we sort of just we've sort of just moved past that, and I think we need to really focus on just how impressive he's been at his position. Right? I mean, the very fact that we're talking about him possibly breaking Jerry Rice's records for the playoffs is already mind blowing. But then we're trying to if we need to compare him to what he's done with the tight ends, it's even more phenomenal.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy that for so long was, the dominant force in the playoffs. And now when we take a step back and we look at what Travis Kelsey has done in the playoffs, and he's done it in one less game than what Gronk did.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and I think we need to really realize what Travis Kelsey has done as a tight end specifically.
Absolutely. And let's, not only is the conversation, is Gronk better or worse, it doesn't really, it's apples and oranges because, look, Kelsey has done this consistently for, what, 10 years? And he's not been injury prone. He had one bad season where he was injured, his rookie season. But every season after that, he's been phenomenal. He's already surpassed Gronk's touchdowns
In
and
everything.
in everything in the playoffs. One less game. The only thing that Gronk has on Kelsey right now is all-time touchdowns, which I think he had 94, if I'm not mistaken. And Kelsey is right there. He's real close. I know he wanted to break Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates' record. That was one thing that he was in his mind, even though he says he doesn't really care about records. It's going to be hard. I think in the next 2 years, it's going to be really hard to get to 110 touchdowns because that's what Tony Gonzalez had, but he played 17 years. People are not realizing how long Gonzalez played. Antonio Gates retired and came back just to beat Tony Gonzalez's record. And he did. But those two guys, you're talking about guys that played 17 and 18 years in this league. That's insane. Kelsey, I think, what's he got total touchdowns? 79? Is that right?
Well,
In the regular season?
those were just his playoff stats. That doesn't even include what he's done in the regular season.
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying. So, as far as Gronk is concerned, Gronk doesn't hold a candle to him. Gronk was injured a lot. That's on him. He made that decision to get injured. He wanted to go out there head first. He got injured. That's on him. The touchdown record, if we wanted to use Kelsey in that same position, I guess we could. We could put Kelsey in a position for regular season games to catch 5-yard touchdowns. Because if you look at Gronk's touchdown ratio, most of his touchdowns, or a lot of his touchdowns, I should say, I think it was somewhere around 40, 45%, were within 10 yards of it. So if we wanted to use Kelsey that way, sure. But the man has gotten 70-yard touchdowns. He is the best tight end that's ever played this game.
yeah, the playoff stats really just because the playoff stats for me, and when you've played a similar amount of games than whoever you're comparing yourself to in the playoffs, I think it's really interesting to look at because you're facing the best of the best talent. Right.
Correct.
Even when you're the number 1 seed and you're playing a wild card team, or you're the number 2 seed and you're playing the number 7 seed now, like there's a reason why that 7 seed made it because they went on a run late, or they're a team that was probably young and they made that late playoff. Like they're a talented team to have
Like the
made it.
Texans. I mean, we
Like
can really.
Or the
Packers.
Packers this year,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly. Yeah.
there's a reason why they made it to the playoffs. They're good. They're a good team. So comparing yourself to another guy at the same position and during the same era of football is really interesting to me because it really shows who you truly are.
Correct.
That's why when we keep talking about Mahomes Kelsey is going to break these records for all time stats at the receiver position. I think it's important to remember just how different he is to other
Correct.
tight ends.
Correct.
It really does show how great he has been. He truly is built different for the playoffs, like Patrick Mahomes has. Right on Tuesday, we talked about how, unlike other quarterbacks like a Manning and a Brady, whose quarterback rating drops about 10 points, Mahomes' quarterback rating goes up 3 points. Travis Kelce, on the other hand, he explodes out onto the playoffs. If he were to play like this during every game during the regular season, he'd be the damn MVP. I
Correct.
mean, these are guys that step up to the plate, that when you're facing the top talent, when it's game time, it's go time, it's you're out, when you lose, you're out. These two guys step up, and that's why they're the best combo in playoff history. This is why he's the best at his position in playoff history, and you're able to lean on these guys because you truly have the best talent at that position.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be it's going to be very difficult for any tight end moving forward to ever even think about catching his records. It just is. You have, and I think Dalton Kincaid's going to be a great tight end, whether he sticks with the Bills or he goes somewhere else, as long as he's utilized correctly. My fear with him is that he still has that young-minded mentality that he loves to hit people, and that's something he has to slow down on. You can block people without putting your head straight into them at full bore. You don't have to do that. That's what Gronk did. That's what got Gronk injured all the time. That's why he had 23 concussions prior to retiring and then came back and got 2 more. That's why he can't spell cat.
And the final thing I'll say about this is, we're getting ready to head into draft season. If you're 30 other NFL franchises, you're heading into draft season now. And
Or you're at the Pro
Brock,
Bowl.
yeah, Brock Bowers, right, is being talked about as the next, big tight end. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are comparing him to Travis Kelce because of his wiggle and his ability to get open. That's the standard right now, right? Anytime you hear your players in the draft are being compared to player X, the odds are it's because the player that we expect them, or we're hoping that they get to that ceiling, and whatever the player they're being compared to is probably the best at their position. So if a bunch of players are being compared to you, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And last year they actually compared Dalton Kincaid a little bit to Travis Kelsey
Dalton
because
Kincaid has been. What's the other the Atlanta
I can't think of his
tight end
name.
that was
Yeah, I
compared
can't think
to?
of
I
his
mean,
name
like
either. You're
this
right.
is the list, right? And now for quarterbacks, of course, we're gonna all we hear is, oh, that was Mahomes esque.
Yeah.
So that's
We've
just
heard that.
the way
I've
that
heard
it
that
is.
in so many college games with some of
Yeah,
these guys.
yeah.
And then when CJ Stroud came onto the scene for the draft, that's all you heard about was, oh, he has Mahomes esque
Mm-hmm.
you know movements and tendencies. Well, you can be Mahomes esque if you want to, but it doesn't really help your game if you can't go out there and do it constantly. So it's no different with Travis Kelsey. I've heard people say, "Oh, he's just an oversized wide receiver." Okay, well, that's what all tight ends are nowadays. That's what all tight ends are. Since Tony Gonzalez, that's what all tight ends are.
It's like, oh, oversight. You mean he's really fucking good? Is that
Yeah,
what you
that's
mean?
what it
That
really fucking stands for. He's really fucking good. Okay, if we want to be truthful about it, he's really fucking good. Um, by the way, I want to bring this up really quick because I thought it was kind of comical. Tom Brady was on talking to Colin Cowherd, and they were talking about Mahomes, and Brady said how great he was, and what a player, and this and that and the other, and Colin Cowherd asked him, he said, well, he's been people have mentioned him as he's the goat. He's the goat of quarterbacks. There's nobody really better than him. The only thing Brady had in his arsenal was Super Bowls. And he goes, well, unless he can get to 7, I'm keeping the reins. I'm keeping the title. You can't keep the title if you're not as good as him, regardless if you get to 7 or if you get to 6 or if you get to 9. It doesn't really matter because when it all boils down to it, you are not the only reason why those teams went to the Super Bowl. You're not the only reason why they didn't when they didn't go. But I think it was kind of a shitty thing that he said, unless he gets to 7 Super Bowl rings. Well, Joe Montana, in my opinion, was a better quarterback than Tom Brady. He played in a tougher time. He played with injuries, played with injured players where people could step on your face and keep walking. I watched him play. I met the man when he came to Kansas City. I watched him play in Kansas City on the field. He was a very tough player and took a lot of shit for a lot of years. Brady couldn't have lasted in those years. He just couldn't have. So, everybody says, well, Brady played in a different era. He really didn't because they really started breaking the rules down for him. All the quarterback safety shit came in because of him. After his second year in the league or third year in the league, all the fucking stats or all the safety protocols started jumping in for him. He had rules changed for him. So no, it wasn't. He played in the same era that Mahomes is playing in. The same. I mean, maybe it was a little tougher for a few years, but then it got really easy on him. And the last 10 years, it's been very easy on him, or it was. So I thought it was kind of comical that he said that, and I think he knows. He really knows that Mahomes is better.
he's
He's a
the.
better athlete, all the way around a better athlete. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, I think he's the. I don't think that Brady realized, or anybody really would have thought that his mountain might have been climbed so soon.
Correct.
I want to move on to our next segment, about specifically about what Charles Barkley said
I love it.
about the Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift. I believe we have the clip. So
Yes.
Diz, if you have the clip, please run it now.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna look right in that camera. If you're screaming at Taylor Swift saying she ruined her, you're just a loser. You're just a loser or a jackass. You can be A or B.
One of the two.
One of the two.
I love that clip. So the context there is that you've got people complaining about the Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift relationship and how Taylor Swift has ruined the NFL and how
God,
they're
it was
tired
so
of watching
great.
Taylor Swift. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you, Charles Barkley, for saying out loud what everybody here is thinking. If you're hating on it, you're just a loser or you're a jackass. I think
Yeah.
that perfectly breaks down all of my thoughts
You
on
couldn't
this.
have hit it any better. He could not have hit that any better. I mean, I'm sure there was things he could have said that he probably wanted to say and use the word jackass instead, but that was the perfect answer to that, the perfect analogy to it. When I watched that, I thought, wow, this is absolutely perfect. It's all over X and everything else now, and people are making a big deal about it. And people are pissed about it. One guy says, "Well, I guess I'm a jackass then. You know, do I have to pick one of them? I guess I'm a jackass."
Just
Nobody's admitting they're losers, but I'm
have
sure that
fun with it. I mean,
yeah.
it's fun, okay? It's sports
Look,
or entertainment. Have fun with
here's
it.
the
Let's move
thing.
on with our lives. I wish that my life was at a point where that's the thing that bothered me in my daily life.
Exactly, exactly. And here's the thing. People are saying, "Oh, it's a publicity stunt. The NFL is making money because they said the Chiefs and the NFL have made an estimated $331 million off the Taylor Swift thing." Here's the deal. Do you think for one second that Travis Kelce decided at the beginning of this, you know what? I hope the NFL and the Chiefs make a lot of money off my relationship with Taylor Swift. Do you think they signed waivers that said you can go ahead and show me on TV? No. If you're any smart business entity or person would capitalize on that. Why wouldn't you? And honestly, the margins are not that huge. When you really consider it, the biggest margin is merch. The merch is Travis Kelsey's merch has been flying off the shelves. We know that you can't even find a fucking jersey anywhere. Um, and there's some things that have flown off the shelf Taylor Swift wise that has to do with the NFL. But that's your margin. If you were talking about ratings on TV, yeah, it's went up a little bit, but there's times that it's been higher without her being there. Now, especially in regular season games, primetime games, things of that nature. Of course, the playoffs and the Super Bowl are going to be higher because she's fucking there. It'd be no difference if she was performing at the Super Bowl at this point. Her presence is a performance for most people, for the
She's
people
the
that are
most
Swifties.
popular female in the world.
Absolutely, she is. And anybody that wants to bitch about it, I'm sorry, but she is. She's the most popular female in the world. She surpassed Oprah. She surpassed everybody. And if people don't like it, don't watch. You're going to watch anyway. You can bitch, whine, cry, and complain, but you're going to watch anyway. There's no doubt because the haters of the Chiefs, all you're waiting for is for them to lose.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Speaking of losers waiting for the Chiefs to lose, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show, so we can dedicate about 3 minutes per team. Let's do
do
a
it.
little AFC West expansion.
Gotta love it.
This is a segment where we talk about the other teams in the AFC West. We go in alphabetical order so I don't miss one of the teams. And something has happened, something important has happened or been reported about each one of these teams over the past, I don't know. I don't think we haven't done this segment in about a month because, well, none of these teams have mattered in the last month.
Yeah.
So let's start with the Broncos. The reports are that Sean Payton and the Broncos are looking to trade down from 11th overall in attempts to get a quarterback. Realistically, I don't know how far down they can go because I think quarterback could go 1, 2, 3 in the draft. So as a reminder, the Bears pick number 1, the Commanders pick number 2, and the Patriots pick number 3. I think some combination of obviously Caleb Williams, Drake May, and the third quarterback could be a little bit of a mix. Maybe it's a Bo Nix. I know Jalen Daniels has moved up a lot of draft boards. So the third quarterback to go is a little bit iffy. But I think a quarterback could go 1, 2, 3, and none of those teams might move off of their pick. So I don't know where the
Well, they all need a
Broncos.
quarterback.
I don't know where
They're
the
not going to move
Broncos
off.
are trying to move up, but maybe they're trying to get in front of Atlanta. I think Atlanta at number 8 is going to draft a quarterback. So maybe they're trying to move to 7. If I don't know if like the Cardinals sitting at 5 or the Chargers sitting at 5 might want to move off their pick. But if you're
No.
the Broncos or if you're the Chargers, you're not trading with the Broncos for them to
Fuck
get a
no, you're
quarterback.
not. Never going to
So
happen.
I understand where the Broncos are coming from because they're going to move off of Russell Wilson, and you want to try and get a cheap rookie quarterback.
It's
Sean
going to be a
Payton
very
wants,
expensive backup next year, by the way.
yeah, they want to. They want to. Sean Payton wants to move up and sort of get his guy, but realistically, I'm just not so sure wherever you move, you're going to be able to get it with draft assets, or you're going to really be able to get who you want because there's a real chance that quarterback goes 1, 2, 3, and none of those teams are moving off their pick.
Correct. I don't think there's any AFC team that's going to trade with the Broncos to move up in the draft. Any AFC team before them is they have their eye on somebody already. They're not going to lose their player for the Broncos. It's not going to happen. If there's a bunch of NFC teams there, you might get a trade with somebody. But the teams in front of them, like you said, 1, 2, and 3, they all need quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a quarterback, and that's what they're.
Look, here are the teams that pick before the Broncos. Okay, and I've said 11th overall. The Denver actually picks 12th. So you've got the Bears at 1, right?
Yeah.
Then you got Washington, New England. Those 3 might actually all go after quarterbacks. Then you've got Arizona and the Chargers. They don't need quarterbacks. Then you've got the Giants, Tennessee, and Atlanta. All 3 of those, honestly, I could see going after quarterbacks. Maybe
Right.
2 of the 3, maybe the Giants want to stick with Daniel Jones because they just paid him that huge contract, right? Then after that, after Atlanta, you've got Chicago again, the Jets, and Minnesota. I could see Minnesota wanting to go after a quarterback because Cousins is a free agent and he just suffered that injury. So you've got potentially, hypothetically, 7 teams that are looking to get a quarterback in front of Denver. Now, the odds are all 7 of those teams are not getting a quarterback. But even if it's half of them, you're talking 4 quarterbacks off the board before Denver comes up at 12. Like, that's a significant amount of quarterbacks to go off the board. So then you're looking at, maybe a Michael Penix Jr., which I know a lot of people are high on. Maybe Bo Nix is the one that slips. So there's a chance you could get one of the better quarterbacks in the draft.
But then why would you? Here's my thing. Why would you trade up knowing that those guys are probably going to go in your wheelhouse?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you really think about it, that'd be kind of stupid. If you historically the quarterbacks are 1, 2, and 3, then it goes wide receiver. Then you got to sprinkle a little bit of tight end and offensive line in there, and then quarterbacks pop up again, and then wide receivers pop up again. So why would you waste your other draft picks to move up for a player that you know is probably going to fall in your wheelhouse anyway? That'd be stupid on their part.
I think the realistic opportunity, they need to get in front of Minnesota at 11, so they need to trade from 12 to 10. And possibly they might have to trade with the Giants at 6 to get in front of Tennessee and Atlanta.
I don't know if the Giants will trade because I think they're going to want a quarterback. I think they're going to want to draft somebody.
Arizona is going to go after Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think the Chargers are going to draft Brock Bowers. So I think the teams that you're going to have to get in front of, I think 6 is probably your best option, and that's going to be hella expensive to draft at number 6.
Oh my god!
So I think you're going to have to give
up your future. Yeah, you're going to give up your future if you trade down to 5 or 6, 7.
I think 6 because, or maybe Tennessee isn't looking to get a quarterback because they just drafted the Mayo Man last year.
Yeah.
So maybe you can get to 7, but I think you have to get in front of Atlanta and Minnesota in order to get whoever you're thinking about at the very least. So the chart, or if the Broncos are indeed looking to draft a quarterback and move up, you have to draft at 6 or 7. Otherwise, you're probably not getting your guy. And you know what? As Kansas City, who cares? Because you're going to mortgage your future again to get a quarterback that is not going to be as good as your guys.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it's crazy to think that I don't even know if they're going to consider. Look, Sean Payton is a very stubborn, arrogant individual. I don't know if he is, and honestly, I don't know if he's well liked yet. If he's gotten over in the good graces of everybody, coaching wise, and even GM wise for that matter. I don't think he's going to be able to trade up. These teams they're already specifically they have specific players in mind. They know that they want to get these guys. They don't really care so much about, okay, well, this guy might fall in my wheelhouse, but I don't want to take that chance. They're not going to take the chance. They're going to go after the players they want in the positions that they have. There's a reason why they're higher, they're higher in the draft as far as teams are concerned. I don't think anybody's going to trade with them. I think they're going to be in the same position we were last year, not because nobody likes Brett Veach. It's because nobody wants us to get any better. Jerry Jones wouldn't even fucking trade with us. That tells you everything you need to know. So I don't think Sean Payton's going to have that luxury either. I really don't. I don't think, unless he gives up his entire draft. I mean, I'm talking about his 2nd, his 3rd, his 4th, his 5th, whatever.
It's definitely going to cost multiple first-round picks and possibly a player to move up. It's going to be interesting. Let's move on to the Chargers. Obviously, the Chargers have hired the other Harbaugh brother, He's a weird dude. I think it's
Very
going to
weird.
be fun to see him in the his press conferences from here until the start of the season. You're going to hear a lot of just funny stuff because he's a weird dude.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, until he hires a staff and actually does something in LA, I'm not all that worried about it. I mean, I'd prefer it if he went somewhere else because he is a good coach. He's had success before in the NFL,
Mhm.
but you know, I, I'm not all that worried about it. Plus, the odds are everybody's going to get injured, and the Chargers are in cap hell next year.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of moves. You're going to see, Mike Williams is probably going to get cut.
Keenan
The
Allen.
defensive line is going to get gutted.
Yep.
So the Chargers are not going to be in any position next year to make a significant hit towards the AFC West or the AFC in general because
No.
there's a lot of moves to be done. I don't think do you have really anything to add for the Chargers? I
Not
think I
really. I
really
mean,
said it all.
and we talk about cap hell. I mean, you're talking about 4 players who take up $80 million in cap. So yeah, they're kind of they're in bad shape, and we know
They're
that.
in, despite the fact that they have a franchise quarterback, they're in rebuild mode.
Correct. It's just a complete fire sale and move on. I don't see
Uh,
them doing anything for the next 3 or 4 years.
All right,
So
yeah. All right, the Raiders. We talked about this weeks ago. They, much like I said they would, they hired their interim head coach, and they, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna go after a quarterback in the draft. Aiden O'Connell looked fine. Um, you're
they're not going
drafting.
to go after a quarterback. No, I don't think
I
so.
don't know if there's gonna be one available. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the Raiders are going to do. There's a lot of holes. They got to improve that secondary. The secondary's been bagged for, let me check my watch here. Oh, forever.
Yeah,
Basically, since Charles Woodson left,
yeah,
that secondary has been bad. And even when he was there, he was about 100 years old.
yeah.
So I don't think that the Raiders. I don't think they're going to have an opportunity to draft a head coach or to draft a quarterback, even if they wanted to. They probably should look at drafting some corners and someone else on the opposite side of Max Crosby. I hope they don't get like that guy from USC or
I know who you're talking
UCLA,
about. Yeah,
Tutu
UCLA.
Latwell.
Yeah,
Too.
he's good. Atwell's good.
Yeah, I don't remember how to say his first name, but I hope he doesn't fall to them. But yeah, the Raiders are still a mess. The Raiders are Raiders, and Kansas City will win a playoff game there before they do.
I will say this. I think if you look at the AFC West in general, I think they're going to be better than the other two teams next year. I do believe that. I think they brought in some good coaches. They've done a pretty good job with their staff so far, and man, they played hard for Antonio Pierce.
Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question before we end the show.
Uh-huh.
Are the Raiders the most stable out of the three?
They are actually. As
Isn't
far
that
as
crazy?
here's what the fucking nutty part about it's fucking mind-boggling. This is blowing my mind. Right now, out of those three teams, they have the best cap by far out of the other two teams. Actually, might have a better cap than us. And then they actually have the best coaching staff out of the other two teams, and they
They
already
have
have
the
the
best defensive player.
best defensive player out of the other two teams. They have the best wide receiver over the other two teams, and Devontae Adams. And then they also have the second best wide receiver of the other two teams in what's that kid's name? Why can't I think of a fucking name? He kind of burned us in that game we
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. I know you're talking about.
Fuck. God dang it, man.
Dude, and they might even have like the best. They might even have the best offensive line of the team.
No, not Renfro. Damn it. He used to be a quarterback. Jacoby.
Jacoby
What's his-
Myers.
Jacoby Myers. Look, I think they're the most well-rounded team.
Man, the Raiders might be the second best team in the NFC or in the AFC West.
I think they're gonna be, man. I think they're gonna be.
What a crazy world we live in.
It's nuts that they, halfway through the season, Mark Davis finally made a good decision, and then made a better decision by bringing back Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce is now bringing in the right staff. He's got the players in place for the most part. He's got to bring in some pieces, of course, because their secondary is trash. And, other than Max Crosby, they don't have anybody else. They don't really have a linebacking core. And they've got two really good wide receivers and a quarterback that's somewhat up and coming to a degree. We don't know how he's going to be.
Yeah, he showed some
he showed
stuff.
glimpses. Yeah, he showed some stuff. He showed some glimpses of good play, good decision making to a degree. So are they going to be like this powerhouse playoff team next year? Absolutely not. But I think they'll make the playoffs, and it actually hurts me
Yeah.
emotionally, physically. I probably will throw up after the show because this actually hurts for me to say this. But they're actually the most well-rounded team out of the three scrubs in this division. They're the most
Yeah.
well-rounded team.
I mean, it's a low bar, and they figured out how to not trip over it. Let's answer one question from the
Very
chat
true.
before we end the show. Chiefs fan 101, thoughts on all the money on the Chiefs? It should be because you have Patrick Mahomes, and these teams are really even on a lot of parts. And when in doubt, pick the Chiefs. Pick Patrick Mahomes.
And
That's
it's
my
crazy
answer
to
to that.
think that some of these teams or some of the bet lines right now have the Chiefs as underdogs by
Good.
4 points. So, which I want. I want them to be the underdogs. Uh, it just depends on who you go with. There's the majority, of course, they have the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes, because how great this defense is, and the fact that the Ravens spanked the shit out of the 49ers and we beat the Ravens. So I think it's one of those things where people are just, they're bouncing back and forth just to get the money on both sides. But in reality, people know the Chiefs are the better football team in most aspects, mainly because of coaching, Patrick Mahomes, and a great defense.
Yeah. And
And
we will talk about
everybody's clicking right now. I mean, fuck, everybody's clicking. So
Yeah, and we'll talk about this game more next week. I've got some thoughts on the 49ers defense that I
I'm
think
sure
might
you got
shock
some
some
thoughts on
people.
Brock Purdy, your favorite
I
quarterback.
do have some thoughts on Brock Purdy, and I'm still
I
right
know
up
he's your
front about
favorite
Brock
quarterback.
Purdy.
I know that. Everybody knows that you're a closet
You
Purdy fan.
can't BS a BSer. Next week we will talk about the dynasty in the waiting, and that'll be next. Obviously, we won't have a show this weekend because there's no game, so we'll have a show on next
Tuesday.
Tuesday and Thursday. So make sure you
Yep.
come back for that when we were talking specific Super Bowl stuff, and then
Yeah.
we got the
And
Super
I'm going
Bowl.
to do my
We'll have
best to get down there and hobnob with some of these guys and see what we can do. Because you know what? I'm only 25 minutes from Allegiant Stadium. So it's a hop, skip, and a jump for me. So if I can get down there, somebody can get me in, I'm definitely going to get in. I will not buy a ticket. I refuse. No way I could. I'm not spending $5,000 to $10,000 on a ticket. My wife would shoot me in the face. But if I can get in with a media member, I might try to my best to get in. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great week coming up. So
Yeah.
stay tuned, everybody. We'll talk to you guys again on Tuesday. Thanks for joining. Peace out, everyone.
See.